Hey garden family, it's your girl, Miss Craft, aka the Geeky Farmer. How y'all doing? Just sitting here and I wanted to chat with you guys because I hadn't had a good chat in a while. So I was trying to think of a topic and I noticed that some of the lives that I've been in lately or some of the videos I've been looking at lately, one of the questions that keeps coming up by some of our newer gardeners is what's your zone? Or even with the people who are posting, if they're asking, someone asks them a question, is it time for me to grow something? The first thing that I would ask you, what's your grow zone? And I wanted to explain why that is so important, why your zone is important. So first let me explain what a grow zone is. The globe, the world, is broken up into these different zones between each pole, north and south. And the closer to the equator you come, the higher your number becomes. The further away, the lower your number is. And what that is a temperature range. So there is a map that correlates to those bands of temperature ranges is across the globe. Now for me, I'm in the United States, so that's the map I use. I use the map of the United States. And the primary map that everybody talks about is the USDA map, which is the hardiness zone map. And what that means, hardiness means how well a plant will survive in the coldest temperature of that zone. Or can it survive in the coldest temperature of the zone? How hardy is the plant? So for me, my zone is 7B on the hardiness zone. My temperatures can get as low as 10 degrees on this coldest day. So I can't easily, now pay attention to my wording please, I cannot easily grow anything that will die of cold under the temperature of 10 degrees. And what I mean by not being able to easily grow, I definitely cannot grow it outside, but you have the options of covering it up to keep lights on it or keep a heater around it, whatever the case may be. But that's a little bit off topic, but let's stay with the basics. Forgive me, I know I'm rambling, but stick with me. So again, the hardiness of a plant is how cold of a temperature it can take before it dies off. So knowing your hardiness zone lets you know what plants you can grow outside on its own without dying before it hits this temperature. There is another map, zone map, that a lot of people don't talk about, and it's at the opposite end of the spectrum. It is the AHS plant heat map, the American Horticultural Society heat map. And that map tells you how hot your area gets, what's the highest temperature. And for this particular map where I am in a zone 8A. That means I can get temperature as high as 100, I think it was 110 degrees. That's the highest my area would get. So that also lets you know that if you have plants that can't tolerate that heat, you either don't grow it or you make accommodations for it in order to grow it. Now that it's starting to get to the summer temperatures, I have to kind of keep that in mind as well, what to plant as far as heat loving type plants, because I know how hot my area can get. So when someone asks your zone, that's what they're trying to figure out. So for example, if someone were to come to me and say, hey, can I grow corn? Well, me having experience with corn, I know that corn grows between 77 degrees and 95 before it starts to die off. It'll start dying off under 70-ish, upper 70s, and it will die off above 95. Okay? So by you telling me what zone you're in, and if that crop fits in that zone, I can easily tell you, yes, you can grow that, and here's when you can grow it. Okay, make sense? I hope that makes sense. You also have to be mindful of, even though that plant can survive in those ranges, can they thrive in the ranges? So you don't really want, even though you know your extremes, you're high from the hardiness zone and you're low from the blip. Try that again. You're low from the hardiness zone. I'm going to get that straight. We're going to try that one more time. Take 3. You know you're low from the hardiness zone map, and you're high from the plant heat map. Sometimes you just got to slow it down. But anyway, it does not mean, and your plant can actually survive within those ranges. It doesn't mean that the plant wants to go to those extremes. It just says it can survive. You kind of want to make sure the plant that you want to grow fits nicely in between those highs and lows, and then it will be happy. Trying to think, is there anything else about the zone that you should know and why? Oh, yeah, so tagging on to that, kind of with the example of corn, when it comes to answering this question for yourself, what you want to do is, first of all, have in the back of your head what your zone is, what your high temp and low temp are. Understand your seasonality of those zones, when you can expect those temperatures to get really low, and when you can expect your temperatures to get to extreme, and the sweet spot in between there. And then having that information in the back of your mind, then you can go shopping for your plants. Then you can go shopping for your seeds, because then you can take that knowledge, open the packet, turn the packet over and say, okay, this plant likes blah, blah temperatures. This plant germinates at blah, blah temperatures. This plant takes this long to grow. Okay? So you take that information, how the temperature it takes to germinate, the temperature it likes to grow in, and how long it takes, and plug those 3 numbers into your zone range by month. Okay? So for me, growing corn, my weather doesn't really start warming up outside until about end of April, beginning of May. We'll start consistently hitting those 70-degree months. And if I want to grow corn outside, that's when I would plant my corn seed outside. And dog it, I forgot to write this down. I meant to see how long it would take for corn to grow. I want to say 90 days to 100 days. And if I'm wrong, please forgive me. I should have brought my packet. You're supposed to have your props ready when you do this type of thing, and I apologize. But I think it's 90 to 100 days for most corn to reach maturity. So that's 3 months, okay? For my zone, I can get April, May, June-ish within that 70 to 95 range. June, July, and the beginning of August is when it starts going above that 90 degrees, starting hitting to the hundreds, So I know if I want to grow corn for the first part of the season, I've got to get that seed in the ground sometime when the temperature hits 70 in April, and I have April, May, and I should be able to harvest in June. Now that's if everything's optimal. Of course, you have to watch your weather. You have to pay attention to what the ins and outs are doing as far as what Mother Nature has to say about the whole situation, because she can get a little finger in the key from time to time. So So you have to actually consult Mother Nature, and ultimately. You could also look at the Old Farmer's Almanac. They're pretty good about telling you when to expect your frost date to be ending and when you can expect your frost date to begin. You can also not really pay attention to that. Again, if I know my growing time for something is going to be a little bit short, let me back that up a little bit. If I know I have optimal growing temperatures for a plant, but I don't have enough time for it to mature before my optimal temperature range is gone for this plant. That's where the indoor sowing starts to come in. You can always monitor your temperature inside to be optimal for that plant to get it started. And then when temperatures are optimal for the plant outside, that's when you can continue its growth cycle and be able to get fruit before the heat hits or the cold hits. Hope that makes sense. So, great example, tomatoes. A lot of the newbies are wondering why a lot of people start their tomatoes inside. And that's because a lot of those big, juicy beefsteak tomato type of plants need a lot of time to get going. And a lot of people just don't have that optimal range in the way of temperature for them. They like a lot of heat, but they don't like it hot. I know, you're going to find a lot of plants like that. They're very, sedity. But anyway, so what people do is in the warmth of their home will germinate the seed and plant the seed to get it started. Starts. That's where that comes from. You get that started inside. So by the time the temperatures are right for the tomato, still stuck on the corn. But when the temperatures are right for the tomato, your plant will probably be about yay high by that time. And you can set it outside, and within 30 days, you'll start seeing flowers and fruit, and the rest of the growing season. So between that April to June-ish time, you should you should have some fruit already, because by the time in June, July rolls in, it's too hot for that plant to produce any flowers and fruit. It's just too hot. So the plant will live. This is what I was talking about before. The plant will sit there and, put on more leaves, and it may even grow another foot or so. In that heat, it doesn't mind the heat, but it will not flower, which means it won't thrive in that temperature. So these are kind of all the pieces of the puzzle that comes together when you know that zone. So that's kind of how I think about the zones and how I put the zone information to use for me. And I hope that you can get past the babbling parts of the video and glean what I was trying to say. So again, check your hardiness zone by USDA map. Check your heat for your zone using the AHS plant heat map, and research your plants. Understand what your plants need before you purchase, and see if it fits within the range here. And if it doesn't, and you have your heart set on it, make sure you can provide what it needs artificially, whether it grow it inside in a greenhouse, surrounding it with lights, whatever you need to do in order to help that plant live its best life outside of your zone. Okay, but for now, especially if you're a beginning gardener, stay in here. Make life easy. Get a couple of wins under your belt before you start tackling something out here. Okay. If you have any questions, please feel free. Just shoot me an email at misscraft123@yahoo.com, and I will respond as quickly as I possibly can. But until then, I wish you bountiful blessings and an abundance of light. See you on the flip side. This was a flip side. See you on the flip side. Garden family.